make sure it's broadcasting, but it looks like we might be. Yeah, it looks like we're live. Magic. Amazing. Do we have any immediate joiners? Can we see like how many people are watching? Let's see.
Yeah, but it's normally lagging on StreamYard. There's like a little bit of a lag.
We have 20 and growing right now.
No way. Amazing. Welcome, everyone. This is awesome. Thank you so much to Emily, Reka, and Charlie for doing this. I'll briefly introduce. The whole point of these streams is just to find out the people behind these amazing campaigns, what it was like to drive it, any thinking you had at the time. And then also the second part of this is we're trying to build a public goods marketing AI agent intelligence that takes in everything that we are talking about. Because the biggest problem with agents right now is context. It all sounds slop, right? And the only way that we can help, I think, just crypto marketing in general is by giving people access to the best context, the best ideas. And I think that comes from people like Charlie, Emily, and Reka on how to do stuff. And that's why the agent's going to be powerful. So yeah, we'll just have fun. We'll go through Nillion and Charlie's journey, and I think Emily and Reka and your inputs, and go from there. How does that sound? I'll let you guys introduce yourself as well. I'm Jin, Nuffle Labs Marketing. I live and breathe AI at the minute. And please follow Nuffle Labs so I don't get fired. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Reka. I'm founder and mostly marketing person in crypto. Right now, I'm working in ZK. And currently, I'm also in the stage of designing campaigns and messagings as my actual day job. So this is super helpful. I think we'll try to not only get Charlie's process out, but add ours as well, so that the public good ChatGPT is as knowledgeable as possible. So looking forward to doing all of that. This is one of my favorite things to do, by the way. I think this is, at least for me, the most joyful part of marketing. This is when you combine strategy, long-term thinking, fun, your audience, and think with their heads. It's really fun. Go off, Emily.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily. I'm the CMO of Hype. We're a full-service crypto native marketing agency. I've been here full-time doing crypto marketing for the last 3 years, but I've always been in marketing for the last 8 or 9 years. Really excited about this because I think a lot of the things I've seen on Twitter lately with crypto marketing is theory-based. So this is a really exciting video stream where we can actually break down a campaign that has happened. And we have Charlie here, who is kind of the mastermind behind it. So I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello. So yeah, I'm Charlie. I was on the founding team and head of marketing over at Nillion, but I've been in crypto marketing since 2017, predominantly behind the scenes until about, I don't know, 6 months ago. And then now been more online, getting in front of people, that kind of thing. But yeah, always in kind of a marketing or community roles full time since 2017. So it's been interesting to watch CT and crypto evolve over that time.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, thanks for doing this. I think the big trigger for all of this, right, was as with all good things, was kind of by accident, because I was watching the Nillion campaign, and first of all, it might be a little glaze fest, Charlie, so I do apologize, but honestly, the Nillion campaign has been one of the most cohesive and like visually striking campaigns we've seen in a long time, and also like starting a movement. So I wanted to understand it deeply, and I understand things visually. So I made this Figma, just going through like kind of the coin list, the community round timeline, because a lot of people talk about marketing like, oh, what do we look like? What are we saying? But actually, when you're in the weeds of it, when you're doing the day-to-day, and you got to think sequentially as well. What is the how people do things? I won't go through this in super loads of detail, but I just wanted to give everyone the context of why we did this. And we were so grateful that you reached out. It was like, hey, I'm happy to talk about it. I guess first of all is what was it like going through the process of planning it all? What were you thinking? Like, what would you advise other people to do in similar positions, maybe?
In what part of what campaign specifically should we start with? Like at the very beginning of the year or halfway through? Like, what are you kind of thinking to kick off with?
I think just at the beginning for you. Like, how did you think about it? How did you plan anything? What were your influences? Anything at all?
Okay, so I guess, well, Nillion's been around for 3 years, so I'll keep more on 2024, I think, because that's where we really started to push things out. So we knew we'd been building since the end of 2021, and at the start of 2024, we knew that it was time to begin actually rolling out the technology, kind of taking what we built and begin rolling it out slowly over the year, because Nillion is a completely new tech stack, and it's not like an L1 or an L2 in which there's kind of a very kind of well understood marketing playbook on what you kind of need to do and the kind of commercial steps. And it's very difficult for everyone because it's a very saturated market, but it's also like there are understandable steps. But with us, because it's kind of a new kind of form of network, because it's a pure compute network, we knew from the very start that we had to kind of take on that burden of education as well in what we are, why we're doing what we're doing, and how we're kind of different from what the privacy projects of the past were. So from the very, very start, we took a very strong stance on compute compared to what has been previous with like private transactions and these kind of areas. And we had to have a very strong line in the sand that we aren't private transactions, we are something else. And, you know, Emily will know this because we actually worked with the Hype team throughout the year as well. I think it was towards the start of the year, in that we wanted to have both the brand level completed, which we actually work with the Hype team on our brand guidelines for that. But I also wanted to have the kind of community brand and the community culture. So I come from before crypto, a fashion background. So I understood like you really want to have a kind of brand motif in fashion. It can be patterns or specific silhouettes. For us, we wanted it to be something that kind of assimilates with the mimetic term that we came up with, which is blind computation. So we came up with this idea of the blindfold, and we tried to make that be this kind of brand motif that we gave away completely for free. And the way that we wanted to kind of differentiate ourselves from other people that were kind of doing similar things at the time, like Dog with Half was very big at the time, other projects were doing it, is that we wanted to remove the complete grind culture from it and actually put the entire grind on the team by saying, like, we will do this for you, and we will edit everything one of one, and we will just give it to you for free. All you have to do is kind of participate and be involved, but there's no actual effort on your side. And that was really good in kind of cultivating the strong core base at the very beginning, because, you know, it was an 8-week campaign that was ran, and I edited 200 profile pictures every Friday on stream, actually on a StreamYard, for 6 hours every Friday. And, you know, everyone here is in a marketing position. There's not a lot of heads of marketing where you're like, I have a free 6 hours every week to like do this. But it was like so worth it because it wasn't something that scales. And because it wasn't something that actually inherently scales, it made it so much more valuable for the people involved. So we did like weekly POAPs, we got people involved, but, you know, each time we post on a Friday, it would get like over 1,000 comments of people wanting to get involved. The initial campaign did like almost 200K views in 24 hours because it was just like, oh, this project isn't asking us for anything. They're actually just offering us something for free, and that's great. So we took that and we really tried to build that into a strong cultural base. But at the same time, we wanted to build the upper brand base. And the way that I found the best way to do that, just from my specific style and the style of my my in-house like video editor, is we really like this kind of like short 1 minute, you know, 90-second documentary style storytelling. And we use that to completely realign the brands behind kind of our core pillar values. We did this with our fundraising announcement recently. It was like a 90-second video that kind of told the story of the past 3 years. We've done it a couple other times. We did a longer 17-minute documentary kind of style piece as well. And people really kind of resonated with it because so many projects are leaning towards the more kind of jester brand archetype right now, because that's kind of where the market is. So we kind of wanted to push against that by saying, no, we can be more traditional in the marketing style. We can be more focused on the overarching storytelling. And people really resonated with that because we have the simple side with what the community brand is, and then we have the more complex side with what the overall kind of, you know, corpo core brand is, or however people look at it these days. And we just begin to scale that. Sorry?
I have a question.
Okay.
Could you say, before we dive even deeper, could you say what there's always parts of a campaign when you're sitting down like, all right, I need community to do something. Like I need a campaign, or I need to achieve something. So you already clarified your mimetic word of blind compute. You knew that was, for example, a starting point. And then what kind of decisions did you have to make the concept, or more like the plan of the campaign, strong enough so that you can put the creative parts on top of that? What were kind of the pillars that you need to achieve for this to be able to pull off the campaign?
Yeah. So at the very kind of base is because it was something new that we ran like a 5-week campaign purely around education. So what are the core pillars of what that term actually means? Because one, if you create a term, you both need more people to join you as projects. That will explain it as well, because you can't have a category of one. I think Ekram famously says that quite a lot now, but you can't have a category of one. And you also have that burden of education. So we ran a long 5-week campaign on onboarding more projects into our ecosystem, but also on educating people on what that technology actually means. And once we really got in at the community level with that to try and educate the base, to try and get them forward, once we kind of, we call it nil-pilled them in with this like documentary style piece, they then became much more excited about when we was releasing more creative pieces, because they were saying, oh, now more people can understand what we understand. And it's that kind of inherent of like trying to make people feel early to a new concept is something that just massively kind of resonated with a lot of our audience, and then it just kind of grew from there. Yeah.
And then you knew, okay, so there's a shared understanding, knowledge is spread enough so that we have enough awareness to then pull off a more creative campaign. What pillars went into that campaign when you were designing it initially?
Yeah, so if we look at just the kind of brand awareness campaign at this first half of the year, like we knew we weren't going to be like Monad or Bear Chain overnight. Like there was no goal to be that kind of level of mind share at the start. So the core pillars of the campaign to begin with is just how can we create the most engaging piece of the end goal was, we want to create the most engaging piece of content that we can that will translate across multiple different platforms. So we looked at it from like an email perspective, from a more trad LinkedIn perspective, from how it did the community level, how it did the Twitter level, all these different things. And then here's what our end goal is, and we just completely broke it down down as a team. So I sat down with our video editors, with our designers, and was like, okay, here is what the end goal wants to be. How can we do this in a way that kind of meets these timelines? So that's how we came up with the idea of doing these kind of like 90-second videos, because our editor was like, well, we can do 2 or 3 of these in the kind of time frame we have. And it was like, fantastic. And our designer was like, well, we can do 5 or 6 of these different infographics. And I was like, that's fantastic. And our community person was like, well, we can run these initiatives to kind of drive momentum so that once these videos are released, we have these pieces in place. But the core pillars was always just, how do we educate people? How do we do these kind of things? And then it was just reverse engineering from that in a way that, one, we can still tell a cohesive story on not just what the tech is, but why it's important, but also convey in a way that people who don't have PhDs in cryptography can understand what it is. So yeah, we just kind of reverse engineered everything from the very beginning.
Cool. Jen, do you want to do your reveal on Figma, and then maybe
yeah, of course.
Charlie can grade your homework?
It looks great.
All right.
It looks great.
Sounds
I love
good.
it.
Jin grading Charlie's homework, and then Charlie is grading Jin's grading.
Yeah, gradeception. I wanted to, the reason I was doing this is because trying to build essentially a thing that people can understand what's going on, and like not have to read through Twitter stuff, and basically be able to like talk with Charlie later and understand that Charlie has said this about the Nillion campaign, and be like, oh, I'm trying to educate sometimes people about a new concept. Tell me how to do that. I was like, well, Charlie did it with Nillion like this, and that's like the end goal. We want to be able to have basically an endlessly helpful educator. But going on to Nillion, the reason I started with CoinList was because, and the community round was because everyone talks about mission, vision, everything, but like the survival metric of most crypto companies is token generation, TGE. And how do we, a big priority for marketers in general is showing that we understand the reason behind the reason. Because if you go to like, as a marketer, if you go to especially as someone external to the founding team, and you talk about, all these content stats or engagement and stuff, people will nod and smile or whatever, but they'll also just be like, yeah, but what about the token? what's going to happen there? How are you making that happen? And I think this was like a really, really good way to break down essentially what Charlie's done, which is, this is, if you look at this thing, it's super interesting. I love it. It's like, first is important because let's do Nillion blue. First is important because it's like category leader. This is a new term. I mean, blind computing is not a new term, but use in crypto is a new term. Imagine the future. That's like a great structural thing. Is like, here's the possibility. Like taking a step back, if you look at how ideas propagate in crypto, it's essentially like bronomics, for like a lack of a better term, or like just what's the better word for that? Essentially people in group chats trying to sound smart to each other. That's how like crypto AI is spreading so quickly, is that you have someone in a group chat being like, oh, hey, check out this new thing. It's crazy. Imagine this. Imagine if this thing becomes bigger because someone else is going to do it late, like do more stuff with it later. That's kind of like how the ideas are structured, right? I'm not saying that you guys structured it like this on purpose, but I'm saying this vector is super interesting, how this imagined thing will push people to spread it and be like, oh, this is what it is now, but this is the thing. And then you've also done things about like inevitability, and you've picked an enemy, not data itself, but corporate data. So it's amazing. So you've positioned as savior, picked an enemy, verification of credentials, and then big single statement. This is going to go into group chat vectors. And then this side of things is powerful suite. So this is like the platform side of it. Because if Nillion was only a product, if you look at the coin market top 100, it's all L1, L2, RWA, maybe some DeFi and exchanges. And the reason that those are all, I can't do exchange, but yeah, exchanges. The reason that those are all the top 100 is because it's uncapped potential. So you need to have position, crypto needs to position as uncapped potential. And then it's saying like, look, the blind computation is an umbrella that everyone can get under, because crypto category leadership is about umbrella mechanics. So yeah, that was like, I loved the introduction. And then the rest is just beautifully presented. You talk about, here's your ecosystem, that's super important. This is like the movie trailer. And I think the fashion analog is so accurate, because crypto is essentially like fashion marketing in some ways, because you have to come up with a concept, you have to make your own trend, and then you have to fit in with existing trends in a very visual and very like language backed way. I think the technology is almost the foundation, but the story that you tell is like what drives stuff. And then obviously number go up is super important when you're doing a raise. And then this is like a lovely diagram. So overall, like, I mean, just on the coin list alone, I thought it was like a textbook example of how to do something right. We can go into like what I would change too, but I wanted to glaze first and then phase after. But yeah, what do you think, Charlie?
That was great. I love the term bronomics, by the way. I'm definitely going to take that one.
Like, I don't want to make it like a gender.
I'm going to make that the internal group chat name.
Or maybe like Cernomics or something. You know, that feeling of when someone posts something in a group chat and it's like, hey, check out this check out this new thing. By the way, I know more about the thing than you do. And here's a technical term that I heard someone else say. That's like the entirety of crypto, because anyone I know that's deep tech or actually works in like machine learning doesn't is not excited about like our AI agents. They're all like, what are you guys doing over there? You guys are idiots. And then, but that drives the crypto mentality as well, of like, fart coin, screw everybody else, fart coin beating everything. And I love it. Like, I think it's fun. I think it's almost like I think it feeds itself, because you've got the froth here, which is like fart coin. And then you've got like deep tech who are like, what the hell are you guys doing over there? And then everyone over here is like, ha, screw you guys. And then something amazing will come out of this. And I think that's like it's almost like the underworld of technology. And I love it. That's why we're here, I think. Anyway, that's a bit of a ramble. But yeah, okay. We need a new term for it.
Jen, it's my turn to glaze you. Something I loved about looking at this Figma was it gave me a peek into your brain and how you systematize and break down a campaign. So on the screen, I know it's it's not, I think we're quite zoomed in right now. But when I first looked at it, I was like, oh, wow, he really broke down the positioning. What is the story behind Nillion? What is the ecosystem stats across both the ecosystem, community, and also VCs? So I think it's important to just call out the fact that you broke this all down and created little islands of it. It shows that these are all different ingredients that are needed to really craft that story. And then after that, you created like a linear timeline of one of the many campaigns that Charlie and his team has ran, as well as the socials too. So there's that combination of what is the story, what are the ingredients behind it, who are the backers that contribute to the story, and then how is this executed over time? Charlie, I'm curious, when you look at the linear timeline, is there anything missing from this or anything that is out of order? Or do you think Jin did a good job breaking it down?
Onboarding, testnet, Genesis, sprint, nipple campaign. No, that's pretty right. There's actually the one thing that isn't in there is probably what I would count as like my biggest failure. So we can go through that if that's interesting for you guys. So I don't mind talking about it. So like the biggest mistake I think I made this year was pre CoinList post testnet mentions, when you tease a trailer kind of thing. So and there was a lot of discussion of like, oh, we want to get as much people in the funnel. And I was like, well, we really want to take our time. But then people were like, no, but we need it. And for 2 weeks, I ran a Zeely campaign and I don't like them. And then after 2 weeks, I turned it off because it just diluted the culture of the community so quickly. And I was like, after 2 weeks, I turned it off and then we're still cleaning it up now. And it was ran in like April or May or something. Yeah, May, I think. And we're still cleaning it up now. And I just brought in a new head of community and he was like, fuck you for running for 2 weeks. I was like, okay. So, because we purged like, after the 2 weeks, we purged like 80,000 bots or something like that. And I was like, oh my God, it just wasn't worth it. So you didn't have that on the board. And I was like, should I bring it up? And I was like, well, if we're going to be real about it, then yeah. So that is the correct timeline of things. There isn't, I don't know if the events were there, like the IRL events. We try and be slightly creative at the IRL events as well. But that was probably the biggest mistake we made this year. And I'll never do it again. We ran Zeely for 2 weeks. And I was like, oh no. So yeah,
that's a really good point. I think that it's a catch-22 because, as we all know, until the exchange, they who must not be named, monopoly is broken, and it's happening with lots of dexes and hyperliquid and stuff. Maybe not hyperliquid is not a bad example, but a lot of the $1 billion tokens in the past like 2 months have come from non-first centralized exchange listings. Listings are like the number one driver of like number go up economics of driving these campaigns, right? And I found that over various campaigns that you have to do, like the name of the game is you need number go up, no matter what anyone says. Like it's part of the game, whether it's TVL or testnet users or numbers, everyone needs a number because it comes from all sides. Founding team comes from exchanges, comes from even the community. Like, wait, what? You guys only have 2,000 people in the community? I'm like, well, they all love it and they spend 10,000 person hours every week talking, but people don't care about that. You need like new metrics. So the thing I was going to say was, with these kind of campaigns, you got to put people into a pool, and then they've got to earn the right to contribute to culture, I think. Because if you bring everyone, it's like having a party. If you just bring everyone in from the street, the vibes are off. But if you have a section that people can get into, I think that's like the best catch-22. That's what I found anyways. Like Galaxy and Zeely they have like great uses, but like they're not good for culture, because you just end up people who don't want to contribute culture coming in. And even then, like, it's up to us to make culture, because at the end of the day, why is a grown adult spending time on a Discord vibing unless like we make it fun? Like that's the only thing that we can do, right?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, on Zeely, actually, Jen, I think you and I first started talking because I reverse engineered what Nuffle did on Zeely. You essentially use Zeely or Galaxy, I don't remember which one it was, as a portal to capture top of funnel, but then you qualify them by using a really dense form. So I really think it's about execution. And but yeah, high level, usually some of these questing tools, they attract a lot of high volume farmers. And going back to what you said in the beginning, Charlie, so I remember when you were hand bestowing every single blindfold on PFPs, and the Nillion blue blindfold was everywhere. And the other thing that I don't really see in the timeline, just because some of these campaigns, the execution does have a lot of different stages and landing pages, was I think Nillion did a really great job storytelling through video. There was a video series that was done kind of educating people before they can even unlock any rewards or unlock any tiers, from what I remember. Out of the different, I know you already talked about your biggest failure. What were some of the biggest wins? And how do you also measure success?
It's a great question. So probably the biggest win this year wasn't actually the piece of content that probably metrically performed the best. It was a piece that was called something like "What is Nillion?" and it was a 90-second video that we released in September. And it just, because we had a lot of feedback that we still don't know what Nillion is, and that's fine. It's incredibly complex. That's going to be a problem we deal with long into the future. But we essentially had a very kind of, we had a lot of, because we have so many landing pages, because we had so many campaigns going on, it was kind of fractured. So we made this 90-second video that in the first, I had it to that, it was like very Mr. Beast. In the first 2 seconds, you had to understand what it was, and we drilled down the entire technology to someone clicking a button on their mobile and a switch flipping, so privacy's on. And that's essentially the entire story, and then it carries on for the additional 90 seconds and kind of goes into it more. It did well, but it wasn't like the biggest piece we did. But it was just a piece that completely realigned the entire story for what we're doing. And since then, it's kind of gone from there. We had a very good kind of Q4, I think, and it really kind of, people say we come out of left field, which is great. That's exactly what you kind of want. But I think it started with us completely realigning the brand and having that kind of video, have the explainer happen within the first 2 seconds. And, I agonized, to my editors, dislike for about 10 days of constant talking about that first 2 or 3 seconds of that video to be like, could we do this? Could we change the text? Could it be slightly quicker? Should it be slower? And I think we ended up in a good place, but that was probably the biggest win, is that we just completely realigned. And then I knew 2 weeks later we were going to be going into our fundraising announcements, and they always perform well. So we did that, and we were trending on the technology part of Twitter for 22 hours. But the CTA from the announcement was back to that realignment piece. So that really then, all the new people that came in, they understood what Nillion was within about 3 seconds. So that was probably, the biggest win of the year. But I'm not, there was a second part that I can't remember what it was, sorry.
How do you measure success?
I measure success, and we have like all the dashboards and stuff. I actually just set up my new Kaito dashboard this morning. I messaged their team, was like, I need that right away. So we got that set up, which is great. I'm going to do my homework on that later. But I track it mainly. I think the tool's called Together Crew as well. It tracks like community sentiment. So we track it through that, which is a big one, because if I can see that community sentiment is positive and growing quickly, that's a really great one for me. I look less at like how many followers we gain or how many impressions we do, because they can easily be gamed. Like it's very easy to kind of game impressions and those kind of things. I look at mainly completely at the bottom of the funnel. How are people feeling? Do people understand what we're doing? Are people creating their own content about it? Because that's ultimately the distribution at the bottom of the funnel is where all the distribution is. We can control our distribution, but crypto is growing horizontally as well through communities. So that is probably what I've been tracking most over Q4, is what is not just our mindshare sentiment that everyone tracks now on Kaito, which is fantastic, but what is also the community bottom of the funnel doesn't get massively picked up all the time. What is their sentiment? How are they feeling about us? So we have like custom built sentiment health score data dashboards for that kind of stuff. So that's what we use.
I think maybe there's actually one more thing that's missing from the Figma is that you guys do a lot of team marketing as well. In terms of, for example, I first saw Nillion, not even your insane campaigns. I saw because one of your team members popped up on my feed somehow, or like liked something, and I went on their profile and I was like Nillion, and then I saw other team members with the blindfold, and it all started to make sense. But this also goes to show how insanely horizontal crypto is and crypto Twitter, and goes back to one of our earlier streams with this little crew of the importance of theme presence, and that being one of the greatest tools for discovery. How did you guys think about that? Was that a conscious effort? Is there time put away from some parts of the team? Some team members are actually putting in time every week. How does that go within the team? And was it hard? And how did you convince them, if you needed to convince them at all?
Yes, it was hard. I think that's the first. Like, I think because of the build that we have, a lot of our tech team, for example, come from a Web 2 background because they need to have a cryptography background or a language background. So there's not as many natives on the tech side. So we made an active effort to make sure that we're hiring more natives on the commercial side, which has helped over the past year. But it definitely was hard. But when we were starting to approach it, I called up one of the Monad guys. It was like end of last year or early or mid halfway through 2023. I phoned them up and I was like, you guys have essentially got like a cloud house approach to team marketing here, in which everybody replies to everyone. Everyone seems to have their own like meme repository, and it very much works for your brand, and it's really cool. And I was like, how do you kind of approach it internally? And they had their struggles, and they've overcome them. And then but I got like a breakdown to be like, you need to do it at the company level. So when you do like your company all hands that has like 30 people, and like the CEO needs to be championing it, like all the other executives need to be championing it. They need to be leading by example. Like our chief scientist is on there. Like everybody needs to be involved, and there needs to be this kind of cohesion that you need to have your notifications on for all team members. You need to be engaging with each other. Like if someone's new to Twitter, it's very hard to make friends as well. So like use the tribe you've got internally to help them grow their presence. And like some of us have bigger presences than others. Some of us have been in crypto for longer than others. Just help them grow. And a great example of this is our head of people and talent called Rasheen. And she was, before this year, she was never massively like in CT or at the conferences, but we brought her along to ETCC. And by the end of it, she was like, this is the best thing ever. She went to like 4 karaoke nights, and she was just like in it then. She got like an Ethereum football t-shirt, and she was like involved. But now she's like on Twitter every day. She's posting about what she's doing. She's like, the way that we can now approach candidates is differently because you have that deeper understanding of the culture, and there's all these different things. And she was actually in the comments here before because she is just so much more online, and we're seeing that so much more with the team now as well. And it's fantastic. And it's just like, once you get that snowball rolling and that momentum going, the rest of the team then wants to get involved. Yeah, exactly. That's her. That was her. Yeah.
Love it.
The rest of the team want to get involved. Yeah.
It's like we've moved from the era of Slack only to just having a public club where you just hang out with your friends. And the nicest thing has been previous teams that I've worked with, and more of like an agency role, have always had, you either post only about the thing that you are working for, or you don't post at all, because anything else is seen as a waste of time. But then what's happened now is all the successful teams are leaning into whatever's interesting for them. So like one prime example is Juan on the Nillion team. His thing is just being really, really jacked and posting constantly about it, making everyone else feel like they need to get outside more.
Yes.
However, but it's just like, when I see that, I like fitness as well. It makes me like Juan, makes me want to look at Nillion more. And it's just so interesting that we've just kind of exited the whole, that's why I love crypto as well. We've exited the whole corpo vibe of, we have to talk about LinkedIn stories on crypto. Like the more that X stays like X and not like LinkedIn, like the happier I'll be, I think. And it's just so nice because you get to be yourself, which is great, I think.
And this is a good pitch for the team as well. because they can just be themselves, and that promotes the company.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
exactly.
You mentioned LinkedIn Shorts, so that's actually a segue into a question I have, because Kaito only measures certain channels such as X, Discord, governance, forums, Telegram, and you did say that a lot of your team are from Web 2. Are you on any other channels outside of CryptoX?
Yeah, so we have email, we have YouTube, but that's just kind of a re-upload of whatever content we've got, and we do have a presence on LinkedIn. It's not a massive presence, but we have more of like a personal team presence on LinkedIn. A lot of our team do post about what Nillion's doing and those kind of things, and we just try and amplify it from there. But one of the goals this year is to try and build more of a corporate presence for what's it called, for LinkedIn, because it matters more on the ecosystem side than it does on the marketing side. So we're going to be doing it for the ecosystem and BD side, but because our team is more Web 2, when they are posting to a platform, it is normally to LinkedIn. So we just have to make sure that one, do they have the resources so that they can do that? Or, are we amplifying, or all these different things? So it's just, even though it's not the platform that we focus on, like if we can support them from that platform, then we will. Just make sure they've got the resources there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there's a competitive advantage for crypto companies like Nillion, because the world is moving closer to where we are than where everyone else is. I think shorts are becoming more and more prevalent. No one's releasing anything more than like 5 minutes. Like LinkedIn video is becoming better. There's a tool called PostBridge. I don't know if any of you have seen it. Jack Fricks made it himself. He's like one of the AI coder guys. You can cross post to everything at the same time. So like TikTok, YouTube. And obviously that has its challenges, but I think that's where I'm going to start going for Nuffle, which is record video content optimized for TikTok and post it everywhere. And I think that's going to be an interesting, we're obviously at a very different stage to Nillion, but I think that's where the world's going. I think that's where we will be in like 6 months, maybe, because LinkedIn's changing as well significantly. It's much more like Twitter was a year ago, I think. How are you facing that challenge, Charlie, in terms of shifting communications on different platforms? Because I think it's a challenge for a big organization like yourself, right, to stay consistent.
So we just removed one of the elements of the brand, in that we just removed the kind of community brand feel to it, and we have a much more kind of cut and dry approach to LinkedIn. And it's not difficult to go on LinkedIn because you can reach out to most people. One of the traditional kind of marketing, you can cold email people, you can cold reach out to people. Like we have a lot of members of our team with like 20,000-30,000 followers on LinkedIn, because it's relatively easy to grow, because it is such undervalued attention right now. And I think we will see more crypto people shift into it. I especially think we'll see more business development people shift into it as we do start to onboard more non-crypto companies, because non-crypto companies are just not on CT as much, but they are on LinkedIn. Whether you like it or not, like you can reach out to a CEO of a company that you want to work with in Web 2 via LinkedIn, and you will get a response like over 50% of the time. So I think we will see a shift towards it. I just don't think right now you can't like all at once bring the culture across. So we are using the similar imagery, we're using similar themes, and we are uploading like video content that translates really well. But in terms of like what would be, part of the traditional crypto lexicon and verbiage that we use, that's more playful and those kind of things, we won't be bringing that across right away. We'll be taking a much more BD kind of approach. And that has actually landed us, a lot of our early ecosystem was built out through LinkedIn, because our founding head of ecosystem built out a funnel to cold approach companies to start doing like exploration calls and start learning about what they want. What do they want to see in SDKs? And normally people on LinkedIn are more well equipped for that than, BDs on crypto Twitter. It's just a different kind of approach. Yeah.
That's really powerful, because it seems like you can get much more, I guess, lack of a better word, serious interactions, because BD, as I'm sure you know, in crypto is Telegram group chat, hey, chill, no response. But there's good and bad, right? yeah, that's really interesting.
In the interest of time, because we're almost done, and the interest of the AI that we're building out of this, would you mind, please, looking at all these campaigns that we've seen from you, going through some more structure of, this is very cross-functional. Like, campaigns are super cross-functional. You have multiple parts of the team interacting: product, BD, partnerships, creative, and then community, comms, all these things. So the overview, where if you have like a mind map of that strategy, and what part of the process do you loop in more team? What are significant milestones in this process? And kind of have that, if I don't know, it's, for me, it's always looks like a Figma with like a flow chart. I always make those as well, so it's clear for everyone in the team. But I don't know how you think about it, but whatever you have, let's give it so that the AI has it.
I'd
Yes.
also like to expand on that and add kind of the nuance with crypto marketing, right? Is so much of the community is involved. So how much of this was planning and coordination, Charlie, versus reacting lifetime to whatever the community is saying and riffing off of that? I'd love to understand how you think about this when you are both campaign planning and executing in lifetime.
Yeah. So in terms of campaign planning, so we as a company have quarterly company goals, and one of those goals is always a marketing goal. It's always like some kind of momentum storytelling piece, just because we know at the top level. So our CEO Alex will sit down at the start of every quarter and go, here are 3 goals, major goals for this quarter. One of them is marketing. Everybody needs to get on board with this goal, no matter what your department is, no matter your level, how long you've been here. Like, this is the goal. And I will sit down with people and I will connect with the other teams to be like, okay, here's the strategy, and here's how you fit into this strategy, and here's how your role in this strategy is going to be very crucial. And this could be like someone from ecosystem, someone from, working on partnerships or growth, or someone on the product side. And we'll sit down with them. We'll go, here's what we need, and here's when we need to buy, and here's why this is so important for you, and this is why it's going to contribute massively to this kind of end piece. And we can use we'll use the campaign of the fundraising announcement for this. So that had almost all teams involved, even though most people wouldn't think it does, because we released a video. So we had to sit down with product and go, okay, so how has this rolled out over the past 3 years, and what were the stages for this? And we sat down with our CTO to be like, okay, is this the cohesive story of what happened? Is this how this went? And then we'd sit down with all the founders and go, okay, now you need to record all your audio for this. We'd then go over to legal and be like, is this fine? Is this the cohesive side of it? And then we bring in ecosystem to go, okay, how can we interject our partners in this so that we can amplify them as well? And all those moving parts would happen. And then at the end, marketing is just essentially like tying that bow. And we would go, okay, now we've met this company goal. We'd show it to kind of the executive team and be like, here's the kind of finalized piece, and here's what we're going to build around it as a marketing campaign. So the previous half of the campaign is purely just bringing the entire team together to kind of bring this piece together. But the marketing campaign is something completely separate. So we would look at it from, okay, so we have this piece now, we have this in the chamber. The most important part about this now is going to be distribution. Distribution's all that matters right now. And then we can focus on the other parts later. So we'd look at, okay, who do we want specifically for PR? We work with our PR team to go, we want these very specific outlets, and we want these specific journalists to work with. They understand this space. They have a track record of writing about similar things, so they have an audience for this already. And we want them to tell this story this specific way. And then we would sit down with our paid media team, because most people don't utilize paid media enough. And we'd sit down with paid media. We'd bring in specific content creators that we know we want to work with, both in Western and APAC, to be able to translate the content across. We'd work with our syndication teams to go, okay, predominantly in English, how can we dub this into different languages and have it distribute out as well? We want to make sure we're getting it in Korean, in Chinese, in Thai, in German, in Spanish, like all the large predominant languages. We want to make sure we're getting it there as well. And then I would then sit down with the community and team and say, okay, how can we create a sticker pack for this, emojis for this? How are we having this so it can be mimetic? What templates can we provide? How can we have it be this way? And then we'd sit down with our influencers and those people and go, okay, we want to have this kind of verbiage. We want to have this kind of language. You need to do these things within the first 3 hours, otherwise it won't hit the algorithm. You need to do these specific areas as well. And then for the executives, we obviously have like investors, we have ecosystem partnerships, we have liquidity providers, market makers, all these kind of what I would call like institutional or, you know, token industrial complex areas of people. And I would create distribution lists and say, here's a stump speech. You need to send it to everybody on this list. There's about 200 people on this list. You need to one-on-one reach out with them. And you need to say, hey, here's this, why we're releasing this. Here's why it's important. And can you please support us on this? Can you engage with this piece of social? Can you amplify it? If it's one of our VCs, you need to write your own thread or blog, and you need to be part of the syndication process. And then we release it from there. But that announcement piece, which is the campaign here, like there was maybe like 10 weeks of prep before that, and it's only a 90-second video and a social post. So most people think marketers just throw something together in a week, but this one fucking video took 10 weeks of time and 10,000 messages to pull together. And then you have, it's, as we all know, it's only important for 24 hours, because then in 24 hours, someone else has done something else. So those first 24 hours, and I think the first 12 hours Western, and then you instantly flip over to focusing on the Eastern markets, are where it really matters. And most people don't think to do that shift from Western to Eastern market. So yeah, that's kind of everything that we kind of planned. And
that was an insane off the dome. Like that's the equivalent of like the marketing fire in the booth, like Charlie Sloth in the freestyle booth. Like everyone, I am literally going to look at that transcript and try and make a flow chart from that, Charlie. That was fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. Everyone neglects, well, not everyone, but there's a real strong trend in the CT intelligentsia to neglect Asian markets, especially in terms of language and even thinking of how to construct ideas. Like one big challenge, I think, with the eigenlayer ecosystem is that they've optimized highly for Western markets in terms of how they explain stuff, how they do stuff. And it's really interesting to see how a lot of other projects are kind of focusing on like Korean and Chinese markets. And it's really cool to see that you guys are doing that. I think the other thing that really stood out from what you said there, Charlie, is it all comes from the top as well, and from the ground. For going forwards, everyone aligns. It's not like, oh, it's an afterthought, we're doing this thing, how can we oh, by the way, we need a video. I think that's a really like quite a rare thing, because I've got friends who, you know, marketing are the last people to be told about what's happening, and they're like, oh, by the way, can you just amplify this announcement? And it's like, well, what? Like, how do you can't do that in a few weeks. Was that a culture from the start, or was that something that grew over time, doing it the right way like you guys are?
It was a culture from the start. It's actually part of the realignment piece. Is one of our founders, Andrew Yo, who he's the person I work closest with at the company. And he's I'll send the video in our group chat because I think it's actually quite interesting. In the first 30 seconds, he says, this is where the culture's set. If we don't set it right now, we will fuck it up from the start. So it was very much like the founding team knew they had to set the culture, and this is what the culture needs to be. So it's kind of always run through. And like I said, marketing's always been like a quarterly goal that we've had to do. And, you know, that campaign specifically was just one component. We called Q4 was called the slingshot, in that it was realignment, announcement of fundraising, the meta collaboration on the cryptography side, and then into DevCon. So that was like a lot of multiple campaigns going on, but like that was a company-wide goal, and everybody knew they had to get on board with that. Just like the way everyone has to get on board with specific tech rollouts, or if DevRel has a huge thing they need to do, like everyone gets on board. And if you don't get on board, then you're counter to the culture that we've built from the start.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of this coordination is to really maximize distribution, which I think is so important in crypto marketing. A curveball question I want to ask is, you mentioned one of the biggest mistakes was using Zeely. And I'm curious if any time last year or in the time of running these campaigns, was there any FUD or criticism that popped out? And how did you turn that sentiment positive again?
Yeah, so we've definitely had our share of FUD. I think every project does. Probably the biggest one was around the time of the public sale, people didn't feel like they got in, or they couldn't get in, or these different things, and that causes FUD, and that's fine. You know, we tried to do our best to bring as much of the community in as we possibly could at the same valuation as all the VCs that we were bringing in as well. We wanted to give them the option to be in at the exact same valuation with the exact same terms and everything involved. But obviously, once that window closes, people still want to get involved, but they can't. And that definitely generated FUD. And the way we dealt with it is we just went and sat in the community for 2 weeks and was like, I'm available 24 hours a day. Like, I sit at this chair for 15 hours, 7 days a week. Like, if you need to call me, like, call me. And I, you know, if we want to hop on a stage in Discord and chat, I'll do that. If we want to hop on if you want to hop on a voice channel, I'll do that. Like, I'm here. And if you want to just yell at me for 10 minutes, then okay, that's fine. Like, you can do that. And we're going to move past this because we're going to continue to build. And it, you know, it is what it is. And we will try and create more opportunities. We will try and do all these other things in the future. But ultimately, like, we're going to be moving forward, and I will listen to everything that you have to say, and I will give my reasoning why the specific decisions were made. And, you know, I'm sorry for how you feel and how can I solve it. And if I can solve it, I will solve it. But if not, like, we're going to continue to build. And eventually things just even out because they realize, like, we are actually building for a real reason, and we are trying to do something real. This isn't, you know, we're not like one of those NFT projects in fucking 2021 where they're like, the dev has died. Like, we are actually doing something. It's a real company. So, you know, eventually things move ahead, and you deal with the FUD. And, you know, I'm normally always the guy on the front lines. So people know at this point, if I'm coming in to fight fires for a couple of weeks, like, I know people that like come and support as well and try and get involved, and they understand. So it's just about being present as much as you can. Be present as much as you can. Be a face people recognize it in your community. Don't be a stranger in your own community, which a lot of, you know, executives and founders are. Like, be someone people recognize, and you can really tell the difference between projects that have people that are recognized in the community and people that aren't. So yeah, that's kind of how we deal with it.
Love that. I think those are like really 3 key messages I've taken from you, Charlie, which is be present, be at the ground level, be authentic, because I mean, everyone says that, but if you're not engaging with the people who are believing in you, yeah, the other thing is maybe get a standing desk, because that sounds bad. Like 15 hours.
What I have behind me, I've got a standing desk behind me.
Oh, beautiful. I see. Very good. Amazing. No, very grateful for you doing this, Charlie. It's been educational for me, and I think it's been definitely educational for everyone who's watched it. So thanks a lot for doing this, and thanks Emily and Reka for being awesome friends and doing all of this as well, because it's been so fun to do all these things. We'll definitely do another one soon. Just to finish then, we'll make sure that everyone goes to Guild XYZ, which is done on the tweet. It's essentially this URL, it's guild.xyz AMOS. The whole point is, if you follow Charlie, follow a bunch of us, and then you get the NFT, you get the Figma, you get all the stuff, and then you'll get to see this stuff. And the most important thing is, everything that comes from this stream will be feeding essentially a central intelligence that then later you can ask questions of. So I'll actually be using this stream to make a little flow chart of what Charlie said. We'll send it to Charlie, see what he thinks, and then we can release it as something that people can use. Because in the end, the most fun thing is making fun stuff for other people to use, and I think everyone can learn from what you're doing. And it's we have a privilege to have conversations like this with you, but people are going to forget the stream pretty soon because everything moves so fast. So how do we make it accessible for everyone in a way that they're going to enjoy, right? Like, the next thing, something's going to happen, and then it's like, oh, a marketer is going to be in a meeting on Monday, and it's like, I remember the stream, but I can't find the link. And what did Charlie say? And then hopefully we can be there and put him in the Telegram.
Story of my life, that is, dude. Story of my life.
Yeah.
What did he say again?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I love AI so much. My short-term memory has a very small context window. Anyway, thank you so much for doing this, all three of you.
Thank you for having me.
Really fun.
Yeah, it's been lots of fun. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the time.
See you soon, everyone. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye.